Gentlemen, let me ask you something honestly. At this stage of your life, do you really believe the only way to attract a woman is with a thick wallet, a luxury car, or the hair you had at 30? If that is what you have been told, it is time to throw that belief away. It is a story society has repeated for years, and it has kept many powerful men doubting themselves. Here is the truth. There is something far stronger than money or appearance. It is something most men over 60 already carry inside them, yet very few know how to activate it. And when you do, the shift is undeniable. Women notice, women lean in. Yes, even younger women feel it. And it does not require surgery, status symbols, or some miracle solution. It takes intention and about 12 focused minutes a day. Stay with me, because what I am about to share will challenge everything you thought you knew about attraction and confidence at this stage of life. Now, before we go deeper, I want you to pause for a moment and reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation with a woman and felt that subtle pressure to impress her? Maybe you noticed your voice change slightly, your words becoming more calculated, your mind racing ahead trying to predict what she might think of you. Or perhaps you have caught yourself wondering, quietly but persistently, do I still have it? That question alone carries a weight, doesn't it? It is not just about attraction, it is about identity, relevance, and self-worth. And if you are honest, you may have felt that quiet frustration when your efforts did not land the way you hoped. But what if I told you that the very effort you are putting in is the thing working against you? What if the answer is not in doing more, but in needing less? My name is Mary Smith, and here on Mindful Senior Living, I spend my time helping men and women rediscover a sense of calm confidence, emotional clarity, and authentic connection in the later stages of life. And I want to ask you something that might feel a little uncomfortable, but also incredibly freeing if you truly sit with it. When was the last time you felt completely at ease in your own presence, without needing anyone else to validate it? When was the last time you walked into a room and did not measure yourself against anyone, but instead simply existed, grounded and certain? Because that state, that quiet certainty, is not just attractive, it is magnetic. And the truth is, you are far closer to it than you think. Let us clear up one major misconception right away, because this one belief quietly sabotages more men than almost anything else. People love to say that once a man crosses 60, he becomes invisible unless he owns a yacht, drives something flashy, or somehow defies age entirely. That idea is not only inaccurate, it is deeply misleading. I have worked with men in their 60s and 70s who naturally attract women decades younger, and not because they are trying to appear younger themselves. They are not chasing youth, they are not performing, they are not trying to prove anything. What they understand, often without realizing it consciously, is psychological attraction at a deeper level. You see, many women today are not searching for another man who is still trying to figure himself out. They are not drawn to constant validation seeking or ego-driven behavior. In fact, they are exhausted by it. What they crave, often beneath the surface, is something much rarer. They want steadiness. They want emotional safety. They want to feel that the man in front of them is not easily shaken, not easily manipulated, and not quietly begging for approval. And this is where you hold an advantage that younger men simply do not have yet. Your life experience has already shaped you in ways that create depth. You have lived through uncertainty, through loss, through rebuilding. That does something to a man. It creates a kind of gravity, a grounded presence that cannot be faked. But here is where most men go wrong, and it is subtle enough that you may not even notice it happening. Instead of leaning into that natural advantage, many men fall back into old patterns of trying to impress. They chase instead of attract. They over-explain, overspend, overcompensate. And underneath all of that effort is a quiet message that women pick up on instantly, even if they cannot explain it. That message is, I need you to see my value. And the moment that need is felt, attraction begins to fade. There is something important you need to understand about human psychology, especially when it comes to attraction. People are not drawn to neediness, they are drawn to emotional stability. When you interact with a woman from a place of needing validation, your body reacts before your words even come out. Your shoulders tighten slightly, your breathing becomes shallow, your tone shifts just enough to signal uncertainty. And her nervous system picks up on that. It creates tension, even if the conversation seems pleasant on the surface. Now imagine the opposite scenario. Imagine sitting across from a woman, fully present, relaxed, not trying to impress her, not trying to win anything, simply enjoying the moment. There is no hidden agenda. There is no internal checklist. You are not measuring her reactions or adjusting yourself to gain approval. You are just there. That presence feels different. It feels calm. It feels safe. And most importantly, it feels rare. This is where we introduce a concept that changes everything, something called outcome independence. It may sound simple, but its impact is profound. Outcome independence means you are engaged in the interaction, but you are not emotionally dependent on how it ends. You are not trying to secure a result. You are not chasing a number, a date, or validation. You are simply experiencing the moment as it is. And I want you to think about how that would feel, not just for a moment, but consistently. What would it be like to walk into every interaction without the weight of expectation? What would it feel like to know, deeply and unquestionably, that your value is not determined by someone else's response? Because when you reach that state, something shifts inside you. You stop performing. You stop proving, and you start existing in a way that is naturally attractive. The first major mistake many men make, especially later in life, is continuing to chase instead of allowing attraction to happen. This often comes from habits built decades earlier when proving oneself felt necessary. But what worked at 25 does not translate the same way at 65. In fact, it often backfires. Chasing creates pressure, and pressure creates distance. It is not about what you are doing wrong on the surface. It is about the energy behind it. There is a kind of quiet confidence that comes from being content with your life as it is, not complacent, but genuinely content. When you are no longer seeking validation, your presence changes. You become more grounded, more relaxed, more authentic. And women notice that, often immediately. It is not something you say, it is something they feel. The second mistake is tying your self-worth to a woman's response. This is where that internal question creeps in. Does she like me? Do I still have it? And the moment that question takes hold, you hand over your confidence. Because now, instead of standing in your own value, you are waiting for someone else to confirm it. And that dynamic shifts the entire interaction. Respect, and therefore attraction, grows when a man already knows who he is. Not in an arrogant way, but in a grounded, quiet certainty. When you no longer need confirmation, your energy stabilizes, your reactions slow down, you stop overanalyzing, and that creates a space where genuine connection can actually develop. There is also a third mistake that deserves attention because it is incredibly common and often misunderstood. Many men try to compete in a game that was never designed for them at this stage of life. They attempt to recreate their younger years, focusing heavily on appearance or external symbols of youth. But the truth is, attraction evolves. What is appealing at 25 is not the same as what is appealing at 60. And this is not a disadvantage. It is a shift in leverage. Women are not biologically wired to seek the same traits forever. As they mature, their priorities often change in ways that align more closely with what you naturally offer. Emotional stability, calm leadership, depth of character. These are not things you have to manufacture. They are things you have already earned. So the real question becomes, are you willing to stop competing in the wrong arena? Are you willing to shift your focus from external validation to internal alignment? Because once you do, everything else begins to fall into place. In the next part, we are going to go deeper into how this shift actually happens on a practical level. I will walk you through a simple but powerful 12-minute daily practice that rewires your mindset, strengthens your emotional independence, and helps you embody this calm, magnetic presence in a way that feels natural, not forced. And once you begin to experience that shift, you will start to notice something subtle but undeniable. You are no longer chasing attention. Attention begins to find you. As we move deeper into this, I want you to stay with that idea we ended on, the moment where attention begins to find you instead of you chasing it. Because this is where the real transformation begins, not in theory, but in your daily internal experience. Most men assume confidence is something you switch on when you are around a woman. But real confidence does not work like that. It is not situational. It is a baseline state, something you build quietly when no one is watching. And here is the part that many overlook. Your mind and body are constantly rehearsing patterns, whether you are aware of it or not. Every time you replay a past rejection, every time you imagine needing to impress someone, every time you question your own worth, you are reinforcing a subtle internal script. That script then shows up automatically in real interactions. So when you feel that tension, that slight anxiety, that need to prove yourself, it is not random. It is conditioned. Now, the good news is that anything conditioned can be reconditioned, and this is where the 12-minute daily practice comes in. Not as a quick fix, but as a consistent reset for how you show up in the world. Think of it less like a technique and more like training your nervous system to operate from calm certainty rather than quiet desperation. The first part of this practice is what I call contentment rehearsal. For 3 minutes, you sit with your life exactly as it is. No fantasies, no future projections, no external validation, just your reality. And at first, this might feel uncomfortable, especially if you have been used to measuring your worth through achievements or attention. But stay with it. The goal here is to teach your brain something it may have never fully accepted, that you are already enough without needing anything added. As we move deeper into this, I want you to stay with that idea we ended on, the moment where attention begins to find you instead of you chasing it. You are not trying to force happiness. You are simply allowing yourself to feel grounded in what already exists. Over time, this creates a powerful internal shift. Instead of constantly reaching outward, your mind begins to settle inward. The second part is where things become more interesting. For 4 minutes, you visualize yourself in a conversation with a woman you find attractive. But this is not the kind of visualization you may be used to. There is no goal, no outcome. You are not trying to impress her, win her over, or secure anything from the interaction. You are simply present, enjoying the exchange. Picture yourself speaking naturally, listening fully, responding without overthinking. Notice how your body feels in this scenario. Notice the absence of pressure. This is important because your brain does not fully distinguish between imagined and real experiences when it comes to emotional conditioning. So what you are doing here is rehearsing a new way of being, one where you are relaxed, grounded, and unattached to the result. And then we move into the final 5 minutes, which is self-recognition. Not ego inflation, not arrogance, but honest acknowledgement. You reflect on your life, the challenges you have faced, the responsibilities you have carried, the resilience you have developed. Think about the moments that tested you, the times you had to stand back up when it would have been easier to stay down. This is not about comparing yourself to anyone else. It is about recognizing your own journey. Because when you genuinely see your value, not intellectually but emotionally, you stop looking for someone else to confirm it. And that changes everything. There is a quiet paradox at play here, and once you understand it, you will begin to see it everywhere. The less you need attention, the more naturally it comes to you. Not because you are trying to attract it, but because you are no longer pushing it away with subtle neediness. I remember working with a man, 68 years old, who lived not far from here. He was intelligent, kind, and had lived a full life, but he carried this quiet belief that he had to work harder than ever to be noticed. He would go into social situations already thinking about what he needed to prove, and as you might expect, it created tension in every interaction. We shifted his focus completely. Instead of trying to impress, he practiced simply being present. One afternoon, he was sitting in a cafe, reading, not performing, not scanning the room for attention, just enjoying his time. And something interesting happened. A woman approached him and started a conversation. She later told him that there was something calming about his presence, something that made her feel comfortable initiating. They have now been together for over 2 years, and what changed was not his appearance, not his financial status, not his circumstances. It was his internal state. He stopped needing the interaction to go a certain way, and that freedom made him more attractive. Now I want you to think about your own interactions. How often are you mentally leaning forward, trying to move things toward a specific outcome? How often are you subtly seeking approval, even if you do not say it out loud? And what would happen if you removed that entirely? Because here's the truth. Women are incredibly perceptive when it comes to emotional energy. They may not articulate it in psychological terms, but they feel it. They feel when a man is grounded versus when he is seeking. They feel when he is present versus when he is calculating, and that feeling determines their response far more than any words you use. This brings us to something even deeper, your nervous system. Every interaction you have is not just a conversation between two people. It is an exchange between two nervous systems. If you are tense, she will feel that tension. If you are calm, her body begins to relax as well. This is not abstract. It is biological. When you are constantly looking for approval, your stress response activates. Your body prepares for evaluation, almost as if you are being tested, and that changes your tone, your posture, your timing. But when you operate from outcome independence, your system stays regulated. Your breathing is slower, your movements are more deliberate, your eye contact becomes steady instead of searching. And this is where presence becomes your greatest asset. Not what you say, but how you feel while saying it. Not the words themselves, but the energy behind them. A man who is fully present, who is not rushing, not forcing, not needing, stands out immediately in a world where most people are distracted and seeking. There is also something important to understand about modern dating dynamics. Many women today are surrounded by noise, social media, constant attention, endless options. And because of that, what becomes rare is not attention, but peace. A man who brings calm into an interaction, who does not add pressure, who does not try to take something, but simply shares space, becomes incredibly refreshing. This is what I mean when I talk about silent leadership. It is not loud, it is not performative, it is the ability to remain composed, to listen without interrupting, to respond instead of reacting. It is the strength to hold your own emotional state regardless of what is happening around you. And at this stage of your life, this is where your true advantage lies. You are not here to compete with younger men on speed, flash, or novelty. You are here to embody depth, steadiness, and clarity. When you do that, you are no longer in competition. You are in a completely different category. Now, I want to give you something simple that you can start using immediately, even before the full 12-minute practice becomes a habit. The next time you find yourself in a conversation, take a slow breath in for 4 seconds. Hold it briefly, and then exhale slowly for 6 seconds. As you exhale, mentally release the need to be chosen. Just let that thought go, even if only for a moment. Notice what happens in your body when you do this. Notice how your shoulders drop slightly, how your mind quiets just a bit. That small shift is the beginning of something much larger, because confidence is not built in grand gestures. It is built in these quiet, repeated moments of self-regulation. And as you begin to practice this, something subtle will start to change in how women respond to you. You may notice more eye contact, a softer tone in their voice, a willingness to stay in the conversation a little longer. Not because you are doing more, but because you are doing less of what pushes them away. In the next part, we are going to take this even further. We will explore emotional mastery, the ability to handle not just your own emotions, but the emotional depth of a woman. Because attraction may begin with presence, but it deepens through emotional safety. And when a woman senses that you can hold space for her complexity, her moods, her intensity without becoming reactive or overwhelmed, something powerful happens. She stops testing and she starts trusting. Now, this is where everything begins to deepen in a way most men never fully explore, because attraction might open the door. But emotional mastery is what determines whether that connection grows or quietly fades away. And when I say emotional mastery, I do not mean suppressing feelings or trying to appear unshakable. I mean something far more refined. I mean the ability to remain grounded in yourself while allowing another person to fully experience their emotions without feeling the need to control, fix, or escape them. Let me ask you something that may shift your perspective immediately. Have you ever been in a situation where a woman's mood changed suddenly? Maybe she became quieter, a bit distant, or even slightly irritated, and you felt an internal urge to correct it? Maybe you tried to lighten the mood quickly, explain yourself, or steer things back to comfort as fast as possible. That reaction is incredibly common, but it reveals something important. It shows that in that moment, her emotional state began to influence your sense of stability. And this is where most men unknowingly lose their grounding. Not because they lack strength, but because they have not been taught how to hold emotional space without becoming entangled in it. You see, when a woman feels that you are affected by every shift in her mood, it creates a subtle imbalance. Instead of feeling safe to express herself freely, she begins to sense that she has to manage your reactions as well. And that quietly reduces attraction. Now imagine a different scenario. She expresses something emotional, maybe a frustration, maybe a moment of vulnerability, and instead of reacting quickly, instead of trying to fix or redirect, you simply stay present. You listen, you allow her to finish. Your body remains relaxed, your tone steady, your attention fully with her, but not overwhelmed by her. There is no urgency in you, no tension, just quiet awareness. That kind of presence does something powerful. It signals emotional safety. It tells her, without words, that she can be fully herself without destabilizing you. And when a woman feels that, something begins to soften. Her defenses lower, her trust increases. Because she is no longer interacting with someone who needs the moment to go a certain way. She is with someone who can hold the moment as it is. This is what I mean by silent strength. It is not loud. It is not performative. It is deeply felt, and it is incredibly rare. There is a psychological principle at play here that is worth understanding. Human beings are constantly, often unconsciously, assessing emotional stability in others, especially in close interactions. When someone senses that you are grounded, that your emotional state is self-regulated, their nervous system begins to relax. They feel safer, and safety is the foundation of deeper attraction. But if they sense that you are easily thrown off balance, that you need things to go smoothly in order to stay comfortable, it creates a subtle tension. Not because they are judging you harshly, but because their system is trying to understand whether it can fully open in your presence. And here is where your life experience becomes one of your greatest assets again. You have already navigated complex emotions. You have dealt with uncertainty, loss, responsibility. You have faced situations that required resilience. That capacity is already within you. The only question is whether you are consciously applying it in your interactions. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is learning to respond instead of react. And there is a difference. A reaction is immediate, often driven by discomfort or the need to regain control. A response is intentional. It comes from a place of awareness rather than impulse. For example, if a woman challenges you playfully or even tests you slightly, many men instinctively try to defend themselves or prove something. But a grounded response might be a calm smile, a light acknowledgement, or even a moment of silence before speaking. That pause alone communicates control. It shows that you are not being pulled by the moment. You are choosing how to engage with it. Now let us talk about something that often goes unspoken, emotional testing. Not in a manipulative sense, but as a natural human behavior. Sometimes a woman may express doubt, disagreement, or even mild resistance. Not because she wants conflict, but because she is trying to understand your emotional stability. She is observing how you handle pressure, how you handle unpredictability. If your response is reactive, defensive, or overly eager to correct the situation, it signals fragility. But if your response is calm, grounded, and unhurried, it signals strength. Not aggressive strength, but emotional strength. The kind that builds trust over time. And trust, more than anything else, is what allows attraction to deepen into something meaningful. I want you to think back to your own experiences again. Not just in dating, but in life. The people you felt most comfortable around, the ones you trusted. Were they the ones who reacted quickly and emotionally to everything? Or were they the ones who remained steady, who listened, who created space for you to be yourself? That same principle applies here. Now here is where it becomes even more practical. The next time you are in an interaction and you feel that internal urge to react, I want you to try something simple. Notice the feeling without acting on it immediately. Just observe it for a moment. You might feel a slight tightening in your chest, a quickening of your thoughts, an urge to speak. Instead of following that impulse, take a slow breath and give yourself a few seconds. In those few seconds, something shifts. You move from reaction to choice, and that small gap is where emotional mastery begins. Another important element is learning to tolerate silence. Many men feel the need to fill every pause, to keep the conversation flowing at all times. But silence, when held comfortably, can be incredibly powerful. It allows space for connection to deepen. It shows that you are not anxious, that you are not relying on constant stimulation to feel secure. And interestingly, it often invites her to open up more, because she senses that you are not rushing the moment. You are allowing it to unfold naturally. There is also something to be said about emotional contrast. When you are consistently calm and grounded, your reactions carry more weight when you do choose to express them. Your words become more meaningful because they are not constant, they are intentional. This creates a dynamic where your presence feels stable but not dull, engaging but not overwhelming. And that balance is incredibly attractive. Now let me bring this back to something we touched on earlier, outcome independence. Emotional mastery and outcome independence are deeply connected. Because when you are not attached to a specific result, you are less likely to react out of fear or urgency. You are able to stay present even when things are uncertain. And uncertainty, if you can hold it calmly, becomes a space where real connection can grow. At this point, you might be starting to see a pattern. None of this is about external performance. It is about internal alignment. It is about how you manage your own state, your own responses, your own sense of self. And the more you develop this, the less you need to think about what to say or do, because your presence itself begins to communicate everything that matters. Before we move into the final part, I want you to sit with one idea. Attraction is not something you chase. It is something you allow by removing what blocks it. And most of those blocks are internal, subtle patterns of needing, reacting, and seeking approval. When those begin to dissolve, what remains is something much more powerful. A quiet confidence, a steady presence, a sense of self that does not waver with every interaction. And in the final part, we are going to bring everything together. We will talk about how to integrate this into your daily life in a way that feels natural, sustainable, and deeply effective. Because this is not about a temporary shift. It is about creating a way of being that continues to work for you, not just in dating, but in every area of your life. As we bring this all together, I want you to take a moment and really absorb what you have been hearing, not just as ideas, but as something you can begin to live out quietly, consistently, and without pressure. Because the truth is, none of this requires you to become someone new. It asks you to return to something you may have overlooked, your natural steadiness, your earned perspective, your ability to remain grounded in a world that constantly tries to pull people out of themselves. What makes this powerful is not intensity, it is consistency. Small shifts, repeated daily, create a completely different presence over time. And that presence becomes something people feel before you even say a word. Think about how most interactions unfold for the average person. There is subtle tension, a need to be liked, a quiet calculation happening beneath the surface. Now imagine removing that entirely. Imagine walking into a room without measuring yourself, without scanning for approval, without adjusting who you are to fit what you think someone else might want. That level of ease is rare, and because it is rare, it stands out immediately. This is why the 12-minute practice matters, not because it is complicated, but because it creates a daily anchor. It reminds your mind and body what it feels like to be complete without external validation, and over time, that feeling becomes your default. Not something you have to consciously create in the moment. You begin to notice changes in subtle ways. Conversations feel lighter. You are less concerned with outcomes and more engaged in the experience itself. You listen more deeply, not because you are trying to impress, but because you are genuinely present. And that alone changes how people respond to you. Women, in particular, begin to sense something different. There is less pressure in your energy, less urgency. Instead of feeling like they are being evaluated or pursued, they feel like they are being experienced. And that creates curiosity. It creates comfort. It creates a space where attraction can grow naturally instead of being forced. And here is something important to understand. Attraction at this stage of life is not about intensity. It is about depth. It is not about chasing excitement at all costs. It is about creating a connection that feels grounded, real, and sustainable. And that kind of connection requires emotional safety, not emotional performance. When a woman feels that she can be herself around you, that she does not have to filter every word, that she can express both her softness and her strength without unsettling you, something shifts internally for her. She relaxes. She trusts. And when trust is present, attraction deepens in a way that goes far beyond surface-level interest. This is where your calm presence becomes your greatest strength. Not dominance in the loud, exaggerated sense, but quiet leadership, the kind that does not need to announce itself. The kind that is felt through consistency, through composure, through the way you handle both ease and challenge without losing your center. And this extends far beyond dating. This way of being influences every area of your life, your relationships, your social interactions, even how you experience your own time. Because when you are no longer constantly seeking validation, you free up an incredible amount of mental and emotional energy. You become more selective, not in a rigid or closed-off way, but in a grounded, self-respecting way. You choose interactions that align with your energy instead of chasing ones that deplete it. And that shift alone creates a completely different quality of life. Now, I want to return to something very simple, something you can carry with you starting today. The next time you find yourself in any interaction, check in with yourself quietly. Ask, am I trying to get something from this moment, or am I simply here for it? Ask, am I trying to get something from this moment, or am I simply here for it? That question alone can reset your entire approach. If you notice that you are reaching for validation, gently bring yourself back. Take that slow breath we talked about. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold briefly, and exhale for 6. And as you exhale, release the need to be chosen, not as a concept, but as a feeling. Let your body experience what it is like to not need anything from the moment, and then continue, calmly, naturally, without forcing anything. Over time, these small moments build on each other. They create a foundation of self-trust. And from that foundation, everything else becomes easier. Conversations flow, connections deepen, and attraction begins to feel less like something you have to work for and more like something that happens naturally. There is one more thing I want you to understand, and it may be the most important part of all. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not past your prime. In many ways, you are just arriving at a stage where your true strengths can finally be expressed fully, without the noise and pressure that often come earlier in life. The world may not always highlight that, but it does not change the reality of it. You have lived, you have learned, you have developed a level of awareness that cannot be rushed or replicated. And when you begin to embody that, not hide it, not downplay it, but truly own it, you become someone who stands out in a very quiet but very powerful way. So as you move forward from here, do not think of this as a technique you need to perfect. Think of it as a shift you are allowing, a return to something stable, grounded, and real. And if you found yourself reflecting even a little differently during this conversation, take that as a sign. Not that you need to change everything overnight, but that something in you is already recognizing the truth of it. If this resonated with you, share your thoughts. I would genuinely like to hear where you are in your journey, what stood out, what you are beginning to see differently. And if you know someone who might benefit from hearing this, pass it along. Sometimes the right message at the right moment can create a shift that lasts far longer than we expect. Stay consistent with the practice. Stay aware of your internal state. And most importantly, stay connected to yourself. Because when you do, everything else begins to align naturally.